Hi, I'm Karen Rispin. I'd like to tell you about some tools to provide valid evidence that your client is or is not in the right wheelchair. These were developed over a period of really 12 years now, connected with the LeTourneau University Wheels Project and now with the Assistive Technology Catalyst Project, which I lead. Our goal was to provide validated data to the manufacturers of wheelchairs intended for use in low-resource settings. To that end, we needed data to highlight structural issues that could be addressed. So we needed quite granular and specific data. And we wanted to do this for responses at two levels. One was, as I had said, the manufacturers. These are great not-for-profits. They're on very limited budgets. They're trying to make an impact around the world, and they need to know what's working. The other level was at the more clinical level, where validated data could provide evidence for necessary changes to the funding, for necessary changes to the structure of a wheelchair or the selection of the wheelchair or the modification of the wheelchair at the individual level. Initially, we had tried to use already existing outcomes tools for feedbacks to these manufacturers, and we were quite frustrated in the process because these tools are not intended for that purpose. We wanted to know what worked or didn't in the structure and the parts. So we tried because we wanted to know how well the wheelchair provided mobility. We wanted to see how it moved. So we tried to use the wheelchair skills test. Well, that wasn't really intended for that. The wheelchair skills program teaches people how to be skilled with their wheelchair, and the wheelchair skills test measures that. It's not about comparing wheelchairs. It's about improving someone's skills and confidence. And obviously, people with better skill levels are going to do better than those who have a more challenging disability. That was also true with the functional mobility assessment. It's intended to measure a person's functional mobility so that those with more upper body function are going to get higher scores. And it's also not wheelchair specific. It didn't have the granularity to address parts of the wheelchair that might be causing problems. The same thing with the Quebec User Evaluation of Satisfaction with Assistive Technology. It gave the user a voice, but again, it wasn't wheelchair specific. And we also wanted feedback from other sources as well, from the clinicians who knew the most and had the big, broad understanding of what was going on, as well as the wheelchair users. We needed a level playing field for all wheelchair users so that those with higher upper body function wouldn't automatically get better scores for saying their wheelchair was suitable for them or working well for them. Rather than listing all possible parts of a wheelchair, we wanted to have tools that could be addressed for virtually all wheelchairs so we could get complete data sets. We needed it to be brief, simple, and clear to use. Therapists are busy. These are the ones who normally would be working with data collection, and they don't want to stop caring for people to spend a lot of time collecting research data. So it needed to be very brief and simple and clear. It needed to be a snapshot, because we didn't want to add on to their existing load in any way. So these tools are not the clinical records, they are research tools. So they needed to be snapshots. Many people we were working with, because this is designed for use in low resource settings, speak English as a second language, and they live in different cultural settings. So the language needed not to be culturally specific. It needed to be very clear and with the future goal of translation. And we have been translating into Spanish. And we needed a universally understood rating system because someone who is not familiar with questionnaires may not have the same understanding of what the number 2 means. We wanted a universally understood and shared rating system. We needed to set it up so it was designed to discern difference well. It had high discriminatory validity. And for that purpose, we wanted quantitative data suitable for parametric analysis with ANOVA, where you could look for patterns. You could do 2- or 3-way ANOVA and say things like, are people with good upper body function happier with the function of their wheels or the wheelchair back? You know, you can ask questions like that because you can do that with 2- and 3-way ANOVA. We wanted to use mixed methods, so you had quantitative and qualitative data. So we would get a number from the quantitative data, and we could analyze that number, but we also wanted qualitative comments where we could count the comments and find out why the numbers were high or low for a particular type of wheelchair. And when possible, we wanted to do, within subjects, data collection or repeated measures where we would look at a person compared to their self. And this was particularly true for the mobility tests. So it would reduce the impact of individual variation. We decided to use emoticons under the visual analog line as anchors. We had initially tried to use school grades, and that worked well for our initial studies, and you'll see that it's there in some of our papers. But when we started to use it in different locations, or there was other people interested in using it, who didn't share the same school grade system as my students and the students we were working with in Kenya and the teams in Kenya that were partnering with us, we realized we had to find something that was universally understood. Emoticons use the universal language of facial expression. The widely used Wong-Baker pain rating scale uses them. So we decided to use them as well, using commercially available free emoticons to put under the lines. So this is the format that worked for our purpose. It was a visual analog scale format for quantitative data suitable for ANOVA, and different studies indicate that's usually the case, or often the case, and we, in each of the big data sets we collected in our studies, and you can find the publications online, we first tested the data for suitability for parametric analysis, and it did produce data suitable for parametric analysis. We wanted a comment for each question to provide qualitative data. And with qualitative data analysis, the traditional way to do it is to sort the comments by commonly repeated topics. And you do this with an expert who is understanding the comments, and then put them into categories and count categories. We wanted a snapshot in time and brief, clear questions. And as you can see, here's an example from one of it says, rate the foot supports, front rigging, and other parts that support the feet and lower legs. And you mark anywhere along the line and just measure from the bottom to the mark on the line and give a comment expressing it. Here's how to score a question, where, as you can see, they've marked and they've given a comment. Here you take a ruler and you just measure from the bottom line to the vertical mark. And as you can see, this one happened to be at 6 centimeters, this one is 3.4, 2.1, and there's a comment under the line. Now, if you're only doing it for clinical use and you just want to use it for individuals for evidence, you can actually just put the questionnaire in their file and use it. However, if you want to use it for a larger study, to say something with statistical analysis, you would then enter these numbers into a spreadsheet, and we'll show you some spreadsheets like that when we get to the individual measures. And I'm said individual measures because we found that we needed to separate some key questions about how wheelchairs function. We needed specific tools to focus with enough clarity to spark change. So we decided on 4 questions that we can answer with a team of undergraduates on a 3-week trip to Kenya in partnership with the clinicians and therapists. So we hope you'll find these tools used singly or altogether helpful in your practice, both in larger studies and especially to support evidence-based data that will facilitate the replacement or repair necessary for a wheelchair user. The wheelchair components questionnaire, is it broken? The wheelchair interface questionnaire, is it appropriate for the current user? The wheelchair satisfaction questionnaire, are the wheelchair users satisfied with it? And the aspects of wheelchair mobility tests, does it roll well?